Hello and welcome to the Empowered by Design podcast. I am Dr. Liz. I am your host. I'm so excited for this episode. I love bringing you my favorite people. And today is one of those days where I am introducing you to Jenny, a friend that I met through a group coaching program with Sean Miner. Jenny and I have been getting to know each other over the past several months, and we are both passionate and about empowering and helping other people live the life of their dreams. Stay tuned. Okay. Welcome to the Empowered by Design podcast. I'm so excited for this episode. I am going to read a little bit about Jenny, and then we are going to jump right into this amazing and empowering conversation with Jenny, who is a functional medicine health coach. Jenny is a dedicated, board-certified health coach, helping women over 40 achieve their weight loss goals by optimizing their hormones. After years of struggling with her own symptoms and witnessing loved ones battle chronic diseases, Jenny made it her mission to empower women to reclaim their health. With a deep understanding of the unique challenges women face in midlife, Jenny provides personalized guidance to address weight gain linked to hormonal changes. Passionate about holistic root cause healing, Jenny helps women increase their energy, confidence, and overall well-being through sustainable habits that fit into their busy lives. Yay! Welcome, Jenny. I am so excited to have you on the podcast.
Thanks, Liz. I'm so happy to be here and talking with you today.
Yes, I'm so excited to jump in to all of these ways that you help women over 40. I love that. I'm over 40. And so you have been helping me as we have been cultivating in our relationship. I love bringing guests on here who have an overlapping passion, mission to empower others, and especially empowering women. And I'm so excited to have you here today. I'm going to talk a little bit about how we met, how we connected, and then we're going to dive right into how you help people and just tell us all about you. So we met and connected through our coach, Sean Miner, who I have been so blessed to know for several years. She helps women help other women, really. Yeah, Sean Miner is a coach who helps women, entrepreneurs, and wellness professionals help other people. Yeah.
Yeah. And she's an amazing matchmaker because she put us in these accountability squads and paired us with each other and with Angie and Laura. Like, it's just been a great group. Like, it couldn't have been more perfect match.
Yeah.
So I call her a very good
Yeah.
matchmaker.
And so really, I started working with Sean in 2020, and she has grown her community so broad and wide with amazing women. And over the years, because it's been growing, she has put us into little, like you said, accountability pods to continue to help each other, to foster and cultivate those relationships of empowering each other. So there's the broad group, and then there are these little pods that we have that the four of us, me, you, Angie, and Laura, have I have treasured our connection. We Vox voice note regularly about business, but not just business, life and love and relationships and all the things. It certainly is one of my most treasured groups that we as women just recognize the intense power of connection with each other and lifting each other up.
100%. I agree. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Sean is just, I think what she builds is she is relatable. She is kind of down to earth and is there for us in a way that I've never experienced with another business coach either.
Yeah.
So I am just so grateful for her in my path for sure.
Me too.
Yeah.
And I didn't really have she was the first business coach that I ever came across, because I was newly in business at that time when I met her. And the story, I love this story. I love to share the story, how I how I found her, because I always encourage others to do the same. So one of my very best friends who I met in elementary school, Meredith, texted me one day in, like, it was summer 2020, and texted me Sean's podcast. At that time, it was called Unstuck, and she was doing a special event for business owners in the wellness space. And my friend was like, Liz, I think you would really love her.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, right. So I think those are the things that I encourage others to do, is how beautiful of a gift that you can give someone to say, I heard this, or I saw this, or I met this person. I think you would love this, and pass it along. And so that's something that I encourage people to do, even with the podcast, right? Like this
Yeah.
podcast, send
Well,
this podcast to
yeah.
someone that you love and share the
Another
love.
health coach shared her podcast with me as well. It's the only reason she ended up in my radar was.
Tell us about who you are and what you do to empower women.
Yeah, so I am a married mom of two. I'm in the trenches of teenagerhood. We relocated to Arizona from Southern California 7 years ago this month. And prior to moving, I was working as a college counselor part time, helping students who were in the CalWorks program, which was like the welfare to work program. So they were going to school to get a degree, certification, education, so that they can get into the workforce. And so I had to complete a lot of paperwork for their county workers and help them outline their academic plan. The piece that I didn't like about that was the outlining of the academic plan. I didn't like that. I didn't like counting up units. It stressed me out, like the math. Ugh, forget it. But I loved the relationship building with my students.
Mm.
And when we moved here, I could not find kind of like a equal transfer in the community college system here. So I decided to stay home for a little while just to get acclimated. We moved into a new home and we started new schools. We needed new doctors, dentists. So then I just started volunteering at the kids' school and just took the time to just relax and be a mom in
Yes,
life.
I love that.
And in that time, that's when I started learning a lot about health. Um, I was listening to podcasts, lots of podcasts, and I came across a podcast. It's no longer active, but she was talking about this book called Deep Nutrition by Dr. Kate Shanahan. It's a really thick book. It's very sciencey, but I chose to read it. And she was talking about blood sugar in that book. And she said, if you have a fasting blood glucose of 80, of above 89, you are on the verge of prediabetes or type 2 diabetes. So I'm like, oh, and I was curious because my dad had type 2 diabetes and unfortunately he lost his life to complications of type 2 diabetes. So for me, it was on my radar to not let that happen to me.
Mm.
So I went out and bought a glucometer and I tested my fasting glucose and it was 117 fasted. I'm
Wow.
like, so I went to my doctor. She was an endocrinologist, highly recommended. And she goes, yeah, I would say pre-diabetic, 5.7, which is like the cutoff of prediabetes. So when I asked her, what can I do to lower this? Like I cannot progress to this stage of disease. And she basically said, just make sure you eat right and exercise. And I'm like, okay, but I am eating right and I am exercising. So I just didn't know. There was no real guidance on that. And she kept telling me, you don't have to worry. You're okay. Like
Hmm.
you're okay. You're not there yet. And I thought, well, clearly what I'm doing, it's only going to progress
Right.
to type 2 diabetes, which is very scary. I saw what it did to my dad and I just didn't want that to happen to me. And there's a lot of messages out there that if your parents have it, you're likely to get it. And, basically there's no hope for that you can reverse it or don't get it in the first place. So I was listening to all these podcasts and I came across Dr. Mark Hyman, who I love. He has a podcast called Dr. Pharmacy with an F. And he was just talking about functional medicine, which is getting to the root cause of our symptoms. And that, unfortunately, our medical system right now, conventional medicine medical system, is not designed to get to the root cause. It's really designed for symptom management.
Mm.
So I thought, okay, well, I wasn't really feeling like I was getting support from this doctor. So I went to a functional medicine doctor, and she immediately told me, okay, change your diet, eat this way. Make sure you're sleeping good. This is how you address sleep. Make sure you're doing things to relax and to deal with stress. So I did that. And within a month, I had lost 15 pounds and my A1C had dropped significantly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I thought, okay, there's something to this. And I
Yes.
just felt really let down and disappointed in my doctor who my insurance covered. Um, and another symptom I was dealing with, and I went to my regular PCP, I was having a lot of anxiety, depression symptoms, really tired and fatigued in the afternoon. And when I went to my doctor, he said, in a 15-minute appointment, he said, have you tried antidepressants?
Mm.
And I said, yeah, I've been on them before, but I don't like the side effects. But I had heard about, like, women in my circle were talking about this drug called Wellbutrin that was supposed to be really, it was called the happy, sexy, skinny pill. That's what someone had told me about. And I'm like, I need to get my hands on this pill.
Happy, sexy, skinny. Love it.
Yeah. So in 15 minutes, this is before my functional medicine doctor, so I kind of jumped ahead. But in 15 minutes, he had written out a prescription for Wellbutrin because I said I want to try it.
Wow.
So I tried it, and it didn't work for me. I was hoping that it would have, but it
Did
didn't.
it
And I'm
make you happy, sexy, or skinny? Any of them?
no, no, um, it really didn't. And it wasn't until, like I said, I transitioned to the functional medicine doctor where, she was testing my cortisol and she was having me just really, basically what I was doing was I was reversing my insulin resistance.
Mm.
And so when that happened and I noticed a significant shift in my mood, in my health, in my energy,
Mm.
in my libido, and I know that you are a love and relationship specialist. So I know the ladies listening to your podcast
Yes.
want to know that we don't have to succumb to our hormones declining. So we don't want to have sex anymore. And like, that's just not necessarily how it should be. And it's so true when I went through my own journey of the root cause healing. And that is when I said to myself, because I was at a crossroads when I moved here, do I get into the educational field or what am I going to do next? And so that's when I decided to get certified in functional medicine health coaching
I love that.
and help women just change their lives and rock midlife and not have to deal with the fate of dreaded aging. Because it's, what do they say? They say aging is a privilege, aging well is a choice.
Oh, I love that quote. Aging
And I
is a
really,
privilege, aging
yeah.
well is a choice. Yeah. And I remember you telling, like, I remember you saying that to me specifically, well, to all of us in our group that we were mentioning before about how, aging is really viewed in a negative light, right? Through media and social media and all the things. It's like as women age, we get, it's bad for us. Don't age. Like there's so many things that you could do to not age.
Yeah.
And it's just this negative connotation to age and get
Mhm.
older. And I loved when you brought that up, that very point of how um, when we look at it from the angle of like aging is such a privilege,
Mhm.
it's a gift, and we don't look at it that way. I mean,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's sometimes difficult to look at it that way.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, because my mom, she passed away young. She was 52 and she passed away from breast cancer. And I think, her breast cancer, it was something she had had a couple of years before she realized she had it or did anything about it. So I really do think that had she had addressed it and not been in fear, she would still be here. So I always think about that. Like, we live in a society where women shouldn't age. Like men, when they age, they're distinguished and they're sexy. And women, we have to pump ourselves. No offense if anyone does this, because I feel like almost all my friends do this, is pump our face with Botox and get the facelifts and do everything that we can to not show aging on our face.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what I really encourage women to do is look in the mirror and appreciate the wrinkles on your face and appreciate that you're here to still be a gift to this world, to your family, to your loved ones, and do the best that you can to take care of yourselves. And oftentimes, when you do take care of yourself from the root of just eating well, sleeping better, managing your stress, you age beautifully.
Mm.
You really do. Like
Yeah.
there's just so much to be said about blood sugar, and if we're constantly in a roller coaster with our blood sugar, then that tends to age us. There's things called or there's that new term called inflammaging. Like if we have inflammation in our body, it ages us a lot
Yeah.
faster than if we
Yeah.
didn't. So it's just really kind of focusing on that versus all of the what the beauty industry wants us to do, because I think
Right.
that's like a multi-billion-dollar industry in itself.
Sure. And medicine, right? What you were saying, I
Yes.
love the point that you made about the medical model in our country is very much like treat the symptoms, wait till something's broken before you address it.
Mhm.
And here at Visionistas, and I know this is your mission as well, is to be very proactive in health and wellness, and don't wait for something to go wrong before you're
Right.
attending to your health in those root cause, very natural ways that we can. And
Mhm.
what the beauty of it, of our world and our society, and the privilege that we do have, is then when something does go wrong and you need the medication or you need the surgery or whatever it is, you have it. We have
Yes.
it, but we don't need to jump in on the like throwing medication at things before we've tried other things.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that 1,000%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Um,
unfortunately, most people don't look to preventative care until something happens because they're really
right.
not thinking about it. Like for me, I wasn't really thinking about it until I was in a place of afternoon fatigue and feeling depressed and not knowing why, and that's when I wanted to solve the problem. And that's how most people are. They do not want to solve the problem until they have the problem. So I guess I would just challenge you to really think about what can you do now to prevent like the issues with things that could come up. And also for women too, especially women in the perimenopause menopause space, which is most of my women because I help women over 40. There's just not a whole lot of education around menopause care. And so oftentimes women will be going to their doctor and they're complaining of just frozen shoulder, joint pain, anxiety, depression, all these things. And their doctors are like, that's what happens when you're
that's
getting older.
menopause. Yep.
Yeah.
What is frozen shoulder? I'm not familiar with that.
So it's very common with women in menopause where their shoulder just hurts and like they just don't
Oh,
have the mobility anymore. And it's
huh.
due to loss of estrogen, which happens to
Okay.
decline once we start getting into that phase of life. And so most doctors, most regular doctors, most PCPs aren't trained in menopause care. And so oftentimes I just really want to challenge women that if you're getting no answers from your doctor, find a doctor that knows that stage of life, because
Hmm.
there are doctors that are trained in menopause care for women. And so just know that you're not crazy, that it doesn't have you don't have to suffer. Like I am a big advocate for hormone replacement therapy. I think I've talked to you about this
Yes.
before. There's a lot of concern out there with cancer risk and things like that. And me personally, my mom who had breast cancer, I was really like against doing HRT until I did more of the research around it. So there is a lot of benefits to HRT.
So,
That is,
yeah, tell us a little bit about the benefits of HRT, and also where, if someone's listening,
Mhm.
um, that is interested in finding out more about how to find a provider, how to find a professional who
Yeah.
can help with that. Where do you go?
Yeah. So it's menopause has been on my radar because I'm in it. So basically, menopause is you no longer have a period for a year. After a year, no period, you are in menopause. And I think I went in it fairly young because I'm only 48. I know that you can start, I think, anywhere between 40 and like 55 or something, you can go into menopause. Um, so a lot of the symptoms, basically what happens is we're out of our reproductive cycle and our hormones start to decline because there's just no use for them anymore. And I believe it was Dr. Marie Claire. She is a menopause expert. I think she said something along the lines of we weren't expected to live long after menopause. So now that we're living longer, women are struggling. The hot flashes, the anxiety, the depression, the joint pain, the frozen shoulder, the not being able to lose weight or not gaining weight, but all of your weight's around your midsection, the brain fog, the irritability, the like just frustration with everyone around you. So I remember growing up, my grandpa had said when my grandma was going through menopause, he was this close to divorcing her
Wow.
because of just the 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 dysregulation in our hormones. So where the bioidentical hormones, the replacement of those can really mimic the real thing and help ease the burden of those symptoms. So like I'm not dealing with the hot flashes. Like I still deal with stuff. Like I don't get me wrong. Like I still deal with, brain fog here and there, fatigue, some joint pain, but I'm not suffering. I'm not struggling because I don't think, I know it's because of the added support that I'm getting from the hormones. Um, so yeah, it's just as far as like finding a doctor that specializes in it, there
Mhm.
is a link to a website I can send you where you can put in your zip code and it'll show you the local doctors in your area that are trained in menopause care for women.
Oh, yes. Yes. We will put
Mhm.
that in the show notes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, that would be wonderful. Yeah. And I love that because what you're saying is, I think what a lot of women are feeling is like, why is this happening? Right? Like, why is this
Yeah.
happening to my body, to my brain, to my mood, to my energy? And I know I remember saying to my husband, I'm like, I just don't understand it. What is the functional like cause of this stuff happening to women? And he just kind of laughed and he's like, I bet it's on Google if you Google it. And I'm like, yeah, I bet it's on Google. But there's not enough information. And thankfully, you've mentioned a few names that are out there like doing this research and also then educating
Yeah.
women. So thank you so much for educating us here on
Yeah.
what you've known personally, what you've learned and researched professionally, and also how you help women who are going through this as well. Because information, it is very powerful, right? Some people say information is not power unless you're using it in the right way.
Yeah.
But it really feels good for us as women when we're like, oh, thank God I'm not alone. Or like
Yeah.
what you said, I'm not crazy, right? Like we think like, what is happening? Um,
Mhm.
and and to better understand it, one is really helpful, and to know that we're not alone through this, that we can be supportive with each other and help by talking about it and sharing what our experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. And knowing that there's so much that you can do, even if you don't go to a doctor and find out for sure what's going on with you, even if you're not getting your hormones tested, that there's simple things, my simple framework.
Simple, I love it. Tell us about your simple framework.
So simple is the framework that I use with my clients to help them just like get a stable foundation. Because even if you were to do HRT or take medication or, realize that you're in perimenopause, menopause, unless you address the foundational piece of it, you're not going to ease your symptoms. And so what I mean by that is addressing your sleep. So that's the S in simple.
Okay.
Sleep is so important and
Yes.
we need more of it. We need more of it as we age. And we're in a phase of life. And I say we, meaning the women in perimenopause, menopause, we're in a phase of life where we need to rest and we need to feel okay to rest and not feel guilty about it. Like our body truly depends on that rest. And by rest, I mean, 2 to 3 hours before bed, don't eat food. An hour to 2 hours before bed, get your eyes off of the blue light. Don't look at your computer. Don't look at your screens. Do something relaxing so that you can sleep through the night. And because that really messes up with our hormones in our brain when we're looking at the screens at night. And it's just, I still do it too. It's such a challenge with this area, this phase of our life, right? With all the
Yes.
technology.
Yeah.
The I stands for intermittent fasting, where it's not what you think, where you have to go like long days without eating. I don't encourage anyone to do that if they've never done fasting, but just at least a minimum of 12 hours of not eating. So like 12 hours, like stop eating at 6 p.m. and don't eat until the next day at 6 a.m. That'll give you 12 hours. And taking breaks between eating throughout the day because we're constantly eating because we have so much access to food in America. And so we are blessed to have the access to food. But when we're constantly eating, our blood sugar is going like this, and it's putting a stress on our body.
Hmm.
So we really need to take breaks from eating. M stands for
So I'm sorry. Can you say more about like what do you mean by taking breaks? What yeah, because I've not heard this one before.
no.
I'm a person. Oh, maybe this is really helpful because I'm that person. I'm that Snickers bar commercial that gets hangry if I'm going too long without food, and it's like I feel famished, and then it's like I'm like, ooh, like I can feel it in my mood and my family. It's like, Mom, eat or whatever, eat something. But maybe that's something like a loop that I'm like if we don't know what we don't know, then we're continuing a loop that can make us stay that way. So, yeah, I'm intrigued of if I'm taking longer breaks intentionally, I'm training myself not to get so famished slash hangry
Yeah.
potentially.
So what's happening to you is it sounds like you are a sugar burner.
Oh,
So
a
there's like,
sugar burner.
our body, we have two ways to take energy from either our fat stores or our sugar stores. And when you're a
Mm.
sugar burner and you go a couple hours without eating, you start to feel hangry, you feel anxious, you feel jittery, you feel fatigued, and then you need to eat something. So that's telling me that your blood sugar is dysregulated.
Hmm.
And so that's what I spend a lot of time with women on is helping you regulate your blood sugar so that you can go longer stretches without eating, so that you turn to your fat stores for energy versus the sugar burning. So let me see if I can explain this where it's not complicated. But basically, what happens when we eat a meal, anytime we eat a meal containing any sugar or carbohydrates that turn to sugar, our pancreas releases insulin. So, insulin is a hormone that is supposed to transfer that glucose to our cells for energy. Oftentimes, which so many of us are who are dealing with insulin resistance, which was me, we have an overabundance of glucose in our bloodstream. And so either our cells become resistant to it and say, nope, we don't want it. And so it's kind of hanging out in our blood sugar, in our blood, like our veins.
Hmm. Hmm.
That doesn't make
Our
sense, but
bloodstream. Yeah.
our bloodstream. Thank you.
Bloodstream. Yeah.
So it has nowhere else to go but to our other organs or to the liver. And that's how people get fatty liver disease, which is very common right now with the standard American
Mm.
diet. So it's either resistant to it or it's overabundant. And so Dr. Jason Fung, who wrote the book Obesity Code and the Diabetes Code, he does a really great visualization of this with the subway and the patrons trying to get on the subway. So when the subway's full and the patrons are trying to get on, there's nowhere else for them to go. So they're kind of stuck. So
Mm.
that's what's happening when you're feeling hangry. So it's really getting to a point where you stabilize your blood sugar. And sometimes that means eating less carbs until you can get into a fat burning mode. So there is something to the macronutrient distribution and just making sure that you're not eating too many, especially when estrogen begins to drop. Our insulin levels automatically are more sensitive. They're more hypersensitive, and we have more insulin resistance in perimenopause and menopause. It really stinks. Like we were talking
It
about men,
really
right?
does.
Yes.
It really
Men
does.
are like, well, Google it. Well, men have andropause. So they go through something very similar to us, but they have one hormone they're dealing with really is testosterone that they
Mm,
have to worry about. We have all these others, and cortisol is impacted by it, insulin, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. Like there's so much that goes into that. And until we can really get to the foundation, like I talked about with the sleep, the fasting, meal planning, making sure you're spending time in the kitchen so that you're eating good, wholesome, real foods, prioritizing protein. We're not eating enough protein, and we need protein because as we age, we start to lose muscle. And when we lose muscle, the more muscle you have on the body, the more you're able to burn glucose.
okay.
So the more muscle we lose, the more insulin resistant we become. And the way to build muscle, retain it, is to lift weights, which comes after the P in simple, and just prioritizing protein, making sure you're getting enough. And that is one thing I've noticed that women are not getting enough of. And so those are things that we need to really focus on in this phase of life because all these other problems can happen. And so it's a great time to really invest in those things so that you rock the midlife era.
In the show notes, we will definitely put a link to all the things that you just talked about, your simple program. And we're not done talking about it, but just so people know, because like for me, as you're talking, it's like, okay, I got to do this. I have to do this. I have to do the S. I have to do the I and P, right. And I love your simple program because it's a thing I can hold in my hands, right? So you have a free download that people can read more about this simple program that you're talking about right now. And we will link that in the show notes. So for all of you who are like me, who love to see it too and hear about it and see it, you're in luck because you will get it for free. So going back to the protein, as you're talking about carbs, like I definitely, that I'm a sugar burner is not a surprise to me, although it is new information. I've never been called that before, but I do love sugar. I love it. I love sugar. And
Well, yeah.
so, yeah. And so I know that when I've been intentional and had really good health outcomes in my body and soul and my mind, it's
Mhm.
been recognizing like, okay, prioritizing, not completely eliminating carbs, but cutting
Mhm.
down on them and making sure I'm getting carbs from healthier sources than gummy bears, which are my things in the whole world.
Yeah.
But like actually trying to get more protein, which has been a struggle for me. But yeah,
Mhm.
so I love that you talk about how to do that in your program.
I hear it all the time, especially because I worked part-time for a doctor who was helping patients reverse type 2 diabetes. And they would tell me I have a sweet tooth. I have a sweet tooth. And I grew up with a mother who had a junk food drawer for us of Twinkies, ding dongs. I grew up on chips. I, that's how I grew up, and I get that. Um, and I think that's why I really dealt with a lot of issues as a kid because of how I was eating back then. Um, but there really is no such thing as a sweet tooth. And everything that I've learned in just my research and studies is that we have that because we have a blood sugar dysregulation. Our body
Hmm.
is literally craving more sugar. Does that make sense?
And I guess it's craving more sugar, but in order to get like a better cycle, we
Mm-hmm.
should be eating protein, right? Like, so what you're saying is don't grab the Snickers bar, Liz, or the gummy bears or the pretzels, but you're saying like grab what? What is something like a protein or a better thing to grab so that you're not staying stuck in that cycle of, okay, I want sugar, so I'm going to grab sugar. And then your body just stays stuck in that loop.
Yeah. So, really important is that oftentimes we are craving those sugars because our body is craving nutrients.
Mm.
And so, I always recommend whole food sources of protein, and I'm a big animal based opponent for that source of protein just because of the amino acids that we get from animal based protein. So if you are vegan, vegetarian, you just need to make sure that you're supplementing with certain vitamins like vitamin B that you don't get from plant-based only. So anything like for me, for example, eggs. Let's talk about eggs. People will have two eggs, 2 or 3 eggs. 2 eggs is 12 grams of protein. And ideally, we want to have at least 30 grams of protein in our meal to feel satiated, to turn off those hunger hormones, to help, regulate our blood sugar, to help build our muscles, to give us the energy, to give us the brain power. And so it's sometimes 5 or 6 eggs, and people freak out about that. They're like, that's a lot of eggs. So for me,
Yes.
like I will do a couple of eggs with like chicken or a couple of eggs and even like if you're not dairy free, doing cottage cheese or Greek yogurt, whole fat, full fat cottage cheese and Greek yogurt, so that we're getting the healthy fats too that help keep us satiated. Um, I I'm a big fan of eating dinner for breakfast. So like chicken and
Mm,
veggies, leftover dinner. Like I think that's kind of what trips a lot of people up is that they have to have croissants or pancakes or, bagels and cream cheese and cereal. And that's the worst way to start our day because that immediately hits our blood sugar, and then we come crashing down in the afternoon and we are like dragging and we need something like to pick us up.
yeah.
And so that was me. That was my roller coaster almost my whole entire life. My whole entire life. And so I think what the women I work with, they are surprised that they eat more, but they lose weight. And I do not believe in calorie counting. I know that some people really feel safe with that, and that's great. But as long as you're eating enough protein, enough fiber and healthy fats, you are satiated and you won't overeat. Um,
I love that you just said that we feel safe counting calories, right? And I think for me, I hear safe as a trigger word when it comes to mental health of we feel safe because we've been taught throughout our whole lives that you must, in order to be thin and be beautiful, you must count calories. And in fact, it's not, it's like you said, it's the opposite, right? That is not, it's a false sense of safety
yeah.
when we are um, programmed to believe that you must count calories in order to feel safe. Safe
Mhm.
meaning like regulated in your nervous system. And when people come to you or to me, right? Like we work on different parts of the system of the person, but in conjunction with the idea of being aligned with our values and our vision, and
Mhm.
recognizing just because it feels safe doesn't mean it's healthy. Right. And
Mhm.
being able to challenge, like, where does that come from? Why does that feel safe? And I love this idea of trying to become more comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? Become
Mhm.
comfortable with recognizing you don't need to count your calories. You do
Mhm.
need to be intentional about putting good, whole foods, healthy foods into your body so that you're feeling satiated and satisfied and healthy. But
Mhm.
I'm so glad that you said that word safe. It really was like a ding, ding, ding.
Yeah. Well, because I see it, I experience it a
Mhm.
lot in the work that I do, that we are so programmed as a society to count calories.
Mhm.
There are, and I think that's another thing too that women get stumped on is there's so much information out there that the only way to lose weight is to restrict calories, eat less. And that's great for a man. And yeah, you might lose weight temporarily, but as soon as you go back to eating your regular amount of calories, you're going to put the weight on. And it's not about calories, it's about the food, the information for your body and what it's doing for your body. And so I think it's just really hard because I work with a lot of older women who have been programmed for years to track calories, to
Mhm.
track points through Weight Watchers. Like,
Yeah.
like that's just it's the reprogramming of it. Um, and I'm also the same with the scale. Like I'm not a fan of the scale. I use it as one of the measurements because I think women want to see the pound lossage, the
Yeah.
pound loss. Um, but it can really mess with your head
Oh, yeah.
because it can fluctuate so much based on
Yeah.
what you ate the night before, how late you ate the night before, where are you hormonally? Like it's more about how you feel
Hmm.
and being in tune with your body, just being in tune with how you feel. And we've gotten away from, we don't spend a whole lot of time doing that, like
Right.
in tune with how we feel.
Yeah.
Um, and that is a lot of the work that I do with the women is like, how are you feeling after this meal? And it takes time to really get out of those habits of what you have been used to eating to what you're focusing on eating now to nourish your aging body so that
Yeah.
you can thrive in midlife.
And one of the things that you said earlier about resting and slowing down and pausing is the one of the very first steps that we need to take in order to be able to tune in and listen to what our body is telling us, right? Our
Mhm.
body, we talk about this all the time on this podcast, is that our body has messages for us. It wants us to be healthy. It wants us to feel well. It wants us to thrive. And it's telling us things. But if we're eating on the go, or we're eating and then we're running and doing this and going here and doing this and watching that and scrolling here and right, like then we're not pausing, resting
Mhm.
to actually listen and feel what's happening in our body.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the E and simple.
Yes. Yay.
Is the stress is just really we really have to be mindful of the stress we have in our lives and do everything that we can to take time for us, to take time outs because again, our hormones are just we're at a phase of our life where we should be rewarded for resting and it's okay to not
Mm-hmm.
feel guilty about it. And
Yeah.
it's really hard too because like I got a late start in motherhood, so I am raising teenagers. When my mom was 48, I was off to college. So it's like I'm still in the hustle and bustle of it and a lot of women in this stage of life too are taking care of aging parents and that's
Mm-hmm.
very stressful. So it's just like what can you do to take care of the stress in your life, not feel guilty about it. And I'm not talking about like retail therapy or winding down with a glass of wine before bed because that disrupts your sleep too. I'm talking about like your illumination circle
Yes.
and like Reiki sessions and sound bath healings, or even just taking a bath or reading a book quietly
Mhm.
with music or just
Yes.
plugging into a meditation, anything that helps just bring your body back to calm.
Mm.
And sometimes women don't even know that they're in this fight or flight phase because they
True.
don't they don't know what it like is. They do not know what it's like to feel calm
Right. Yeah.
because they're
We're
in the,
we're living in that constant fight, flight, freeze, fawn, um,
yeah.
state. And
Mm-hmm.
just like going outside, just get outside
Yes.
wherever you are. Go outside.
Yeah.
It's another one. But I love that you gave so many right there, so many strategies that we can use, right? So um things that you've done, things that you find helpful. I love hearing about your life and how you really do a phenomenal job balancing, right? You said I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a coach, and um, putting intentional pauses in, taking time away from life and or work to live, right? Like travel is something that we both share a passion for,
Mhm.
traveling with our family, with our partner, and recognizing that that is all part of just that balance of
Mhm.
being able to enjoy this life that we are gifted with.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's go through the SIMPLE again. So
Okay.
sleep,
Sleep,
intermittent fasting,
intermittent fasting,
meal planning,
meal planning, prioritizing
protein,
protein,
protein, lifting
lifting weights,
weights, and exhale.
exhaling.
Yes. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think too. I loved when I downloaded that and was able to read through it and really um like look at it and I think one of the things that I remember talking to you about is like there's so many things because I think as women, right, we're getting this message, we have gotten it from forever, that we have to do everything. We have to do all the things. We have to care for ourselves, care for our kids, care for our partners, care for our pets, care for our parents, care for like, and then go to work and make sure we're doing all the things at home and vacuuming and like
Yeah.
all the things, right? And I saw this post yesterday. It was like, until we normalize or stop this
Yes.
message of you must do everything, you
Yes.
must do it all, we're not going to recognize the power of resting, the power of the pause. And
Yes.
so when we think about those things, it's what really helped me was when you said, don't try to do all of it at the same time.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
start with one and do it
Hmm.
for choose a period of time that you start really, really focusing on getting a good night's sleep.
Yeah. Because that can be overwhelming. It's
Yes.
a lot to think about. And I hear that too from the ladies in my program. I mean, everyone's different and everyone starts where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the beauty of the work that I do. I meet you where you're at, and to not feel like you have to do it all at once. Um, and so some women will go through it and they're just like, going through it at their pace pretty quickly, and other women need more time on a certain what's the word, framework, like the certain action step, sleep.
Yes.
I am a big fan of not Dr. James Clear from Atomic Habits.
Yes. Yes.
Something that he talks about is, in order for your habits to change, you don't have to, but it helps to have that identity of that person.
Mm-hmm.
So like having the identity of you're a healthy person, having the identity of someone who prioritizes sleep, having that identity and seeing yourself as that person really helps you put those steps into action, because that's who you are. Um, so it's just a matter of what is one thing that you can do towards sleep that can help, that can make an impact on you. So I talk about the no eating 3 hours before bed, the blue lights. It's just like, what is the one thing that you can try? And it's so interesting because the blue lights, I have heard so many times from women that they thought it was all hokey pokey wonky, whatever.
Mm.
Like, yeah, right. And it has made the biggest difference, because what I also encourage women to do is go outside and see the sunrise as soon as you wake
Mm.
up. So if you get
Oh,
up
I love
in the
that.
yeah, if you it's getting lighter later and darker earlier, so our circadian rhythm is going to be changing right now. I feel like this season is a time where we can relax more. Like, I don't know about you, but I like to get my jammies by 5:30 when the sun goes down.
As soon as I get home from work, I put my jammies on. My comfy clothes are on
Yes,
immediately.
because once it's dark, it's like we were really designed to slow down in the winter. Because if we
Mm-hmm.
really think about
Yeah.
evolution, and like we were out hunting and doing all those things, we're not doing that anymore because we're in this.
Or going to the grocery store,
Yeah, yeah.
hunting.
Going to our kids' games at 9 o'clock. My son has
Yeah.
a
Oh my
football game at nine
gosh.
o'clock tonight.
Yes, I know.
I That's my bedtime.
Yeah.
Um, but doing the best we can, and just exposing your eyeballs to the light really tells the brain, okay, this is your wake time. And then you'll start waking up without an alarm clock. It's so crazy how it works. But that is the biggest aha for a lot of my clients, is the light.
Yes.
It paying
And
attention
I
to.
would say, like a lot of the women or people in general that I work with who talk about sleep difficulty, and I'll say, okay, what happens when what do you do when you wake up in the middle of the night and you're struggling to go back to sleep? And I would say 90% that say, I grab my phone,
Yes.
and I'm like, okay, that's, that's a problem, right? Because of the blue light and just
Mm,
the blue light for one, and then just all you're just amping yourself up to be
yeah.
alert rather than taking deep breaths and using grounding exercises and doing a mindfulness, like
Mhm.
just I've talked, telling my kids of when you wake up in the night, do not grab your phone.
Yes.
Just go through your senses. And they're like, they roll their eyes at me, mom, like, come on, mom. I know I have to do the breathing and feel the pillow. And I'm like, yep, you'll thank me someday. You'll thank me someday when you are a very good sleeper. Um,
Yep.
but yeah, but so I love that. And I love that it's the first thing, right? Like sleep, because it's something that it doesn't cost money to to get good sleep.
And when you're not sleeping well, your blood sugar is dysregulated. Your hormones are all out of whack. So it makes everything else more difficult to implement. It comes from being well rested. Something about the phone next to the bed, like James Clear would say, make it easy. And a way to make it easy is to make it more difficult for you to grab that phone in the middle of the night. So really put it in another room. I know. That would make it
Or at
easy.
least like not within arm's length, right? So you
Yeah.
must get out of bed. I have realized as I'm getting older, needing and wanting more sleep, and where it used to be like, oh, I'm fine, I'm on 5 hours of sleep, I have
Yes.
so much energy, and now I'm like, I wish I could sleep 5 more hours, So it is definitely recognizing, and we don't have to judge it as a bad thing, right? And I think that gets in our way if we're judging, like, oh, like, that's so bad, that's so whatever, annoying,
Yeah.
then we're getting in the way of just having the healthy habit be like, okay, well, that's the healthy habit, so do it.
Yeah. And there's a lot of things that go into it that make it difficult for women. It's like they have kids that are very needing and demanding, and they have jobs, and they have like whatever is going on in their life. It can be really difficult to implement those things. But I challenge you to kind of do an assessment, like what is one thing I can get off my plate? And a lot of times too, there's things that our kids can do for themselves. Like we don't have to make dinner for them, especially if they're older.
Oh, I
They
love
can
that.
figure
Say
it out.
more.
I think
Yeah.
I we just have a society of really taking care of our kids. And
Mhm.
once like 10-year-olds can make dinner,
Yes.
and
Yes.
we just don't we don't give them that opportunity as much because we just feel that the pressure to do it. Like it's our job as
Yes.
moms to feed the house.
Yes.
Even if
Yes.
you're working a full-time job, it's
Yeah.
your job to feed the house,
Right.
And
Yeah.
I challenge you to really reevaluate that and see what can you do to elicit help. Like get your
Yes.
10-year-old to chop veggies. Like yesterday I was stressed out. I think, it was just a bad day. I didn't sleep well. I didn't sleep well. And I had to take my son to practice. And I messaged my daughter. I said, please cut up the Brussels sprouts for me. She's 14. No, wait,
Yep.
she's 15. She just turned 15. She can cut up the Brussels sprouts,
Yes.
And
Yes.
I
Yes.
think sometimes we think it's more difficult to have them get in the kitchen and help us, but actually we're teaching them life
We're
skills.
teaching them. I love that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. I love that idea. What if we do a card pool?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Um, okay. So I'm going to pull a card from my soul care oracle cards.
Mm.
This is one thing also that I love about our connection is that we are both very into the signs and the synchronicities and the angel
Yes.
numbers. Something that we do in our group is send each other when we see the angel numbers. We send
Yeah.
it. I love that. So,
Me too. I'll say it
yep.
to other people and they're like, what? What does that mean? I'm like, you don't get it?
Okay. So I love this deck, the Soul Care Oracle cards. Okay, what I'll invite all of us to do, if you're not driving, close your eyes. But if you're driving, keep those eyes open. But you can take a deep breath and shake out your shoulders and really just come to center in your body. Our breath is something that we can use all the time. It is a gift that is always there for us to come back to center, come back to this present moment. And as we do that together, I'll also invite anyone listening to think of something you may want clarity on, a question you're having. Maybe it's about your health, your wellness, relationships. Just call that into mind. I'm going to pull a card for us. Ooh, I love that. Okay. Dun, 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 dun. Ooh, last quarter moon.
Oh,
I love
I like
that.
that.
I'm gonna put my eyeglasses back on, my specs, I call them, to be fancy. And the message of this card, it's a beautiful card. So if you're listening, it is a moon that is pictured in the last quarter. I find healing in letting go. I find healing in letting go.
Letting go of all of the added stuff that we don't need to be doing.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Yes. Letting go of the shoulds, letting go of the judgment, the
The have tos.
expectations, that, yes, the have tos.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I'm going to read what the book says. I love to go a little bit deeper. Yeah. And I invite the listeners, think of something that it is not serving you anymore. Try to think of one thing that you can let go of. It's not serving you anymore. It's not fitting into the healthy lifestyle vision that you have for yourself. And I will read what the book says. Keywords: release, let go, heal, move past the hurt, and cleanse. Slowly take a breath and let it go. The last quarter card asks you to release and let go of what is holding you back or didn't quite work out the way you imagined. This may be a situation, a relationship, an idea, or a dream. We all have moments of disappointment, but the key is to learn and grow from them, not to hold on to them and let them rot. Clinging too tightly to old pain and wounds can keep you stuck and stagnant, unable to see the beauty and love around you. Oh, I love that. Allow your feelings to flow through you so you can release them and move into a place of love. This is where you return to your inner light, which guides you through all things. I love that. Yes. A couple of things came to my mind of what I could let go of.
When we are not taking care of ourselves, or we're doing habits or behaviors, sometimes it comes from unresolved, just like past trauma that we're still holding on to.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And that it's just getting to a place, letting go of that, processing that, finding a way to work through that, um, and turning to self-love.
Mm, yeah. And I think too, there's so many messages that you have shared with us today explicitly, right? Your plan, your guide, and then also like strategies that you use, things that you value in your life, and also implicitly, we've been talking about or just modeling the connection, right? When you find people who are your people, right? That's one of the things I love so much about our accountability pod is that we continuously say, thank you just for listening, or, thank you just for being there. Whether it's advice we're getting or just the fact that we're connected. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the biggest things I would encourage the listeners to do is, yes, there are action steps to take. There are things that you can let go of. There are things that you can move into a space of cultivating and nurturing, and also find your people, find the connections. And if you already have them, bravo, and continue to nurture them.
Yes.
Because that's what it's all about, is that
Mm-hmm.
connection piece and finding the love and spreading it with the people that you're in connection with.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Jenny. I appreciate this. Please tell us, the listeners, where they can find you on social, your website, and we'll also link all of that in the show notes for us to hear it as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Liz. This has been so fun. I'm on Instagram mainly. That's my main
Yes.
social place at Jenny AZ _simple. And my website is simplifiedlifestylecoaching.com. Those are the two ways you can get in touch with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And definitely check Jenny's Instagram out because you're very creative. I love the reels that you make, the remixes that you do, and just like how you show up authentically as yourself in that space is so empowering as a friend. And just keep doing what you're doing because it's amazing. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thank you. I'm
Okay.
so glad that we connected, Liz.
Me too. And we keep us posted on your podcast. Coming soon. And all the fun, fabulous things that you are doing. It's been so great chatting with you here. And thank you. I cannot wait to connect with you all again next time. Take care.